On this episode, I have Lorrie McBride and Susan Lucas from Sacred Wonderz here in Manistee on the podcast. This podcast was going to be kind of centered around Sacred Wonderz, their business that they own together here in Manistee. We were focused on, or at least I was focused on, coming into this, learning a little bit more about Susan. I know quite a bit about Lorrie. Lorrie and I are friends. This is her third time on the podcast, and we were going to talk about, kind of what they do at Sacred Wonderz, and their holistic approach to life. But the podcast itself took a turn that I wasn't expecting, but is why I absolutely love doing this podcast, because conversations change, and we go down a path where it might be triggering to some people. We have a very lengthy conversation about drugs and addiction, specifically here in our town in Manistee, and it was eye-opening to me, and something that I feel really lucky to have had that conversation. As I go forward in the podcast, I have some future guests coming on, that work in the mental health sphere here in Manistee, and that also work in helping the homeless population here in Manistee. So there will be some tie-ins as the podcast moves forward after this episode. Having said that, I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. I feel that you'll get a lot of information out of it. And, for me, coming from a place of I don't really live or, have connections in this world of addiction. And I'm looking forward to learning more about it and finding ways that I can help. I think that's important. We're all human, and some humans need a little more help than others. So anyways, the podcast is a little different than I thought it was going to be, but it turned out to be something that I can really appreciate, and I hope you do too. So enjoy this episode of the Manistee Local Podcast as I get ready to talk to Lorrie McBride and Susan.
The first probably 2 decades of my being adult, I thought my purpose in life was fitness. I was going to teach fitness classes and be a personal trainer, which I did accomplish all of those things. And I owned a fitness studio, which actually is in the same building that we now own our shop. So, the circle of life.
Right.
But a lot of stuff happened over the last 4 years, and it led me to being on this path of helping people heal trauma rather than lose weight.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, we're definitely going to dive into that for sure. Maybe just do a quick recap on who you are, just in case somebody didn't listen to the other podcast that you and I were on.
Okay, so my name's Lorrie. I'm the intuitive owl. I'm a evidential psychic medium, trance energy healer. I started meditating for work stress, and I could always connect to spirit, and it just blew wide open. I started doing sessions and was brought to Manistee and met Susan randomly. I just happened to walk into Stu's Pub, and during the day, I'd never been there before, and I think I was there once a few years prior, but one of the bartenders said, "You need to meet Susan. Like, you two will get along," because someone asked me if I was a medium, or they asked me what I do, and I said I'm a psychic medium, and he's like, yeah, right, tell me about me. And then I proceeded to rip him apart for 20 minutes, like all of his, like, not in a mean way, but like all raw details, right? So they're kind of blown away, and the bartender's like, "You need to meet Susan. She works tonight, or she works a night shift. Yeah, come in, meet her sometime. You two will get along. You'd be great friends." So I did, and we hit it off right away, and it's kind of evolved to where we are today, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, we've only been friends for a year, a little over a year.
Sometimes it only takes a few days.
Yeah, it just takes like that meetup, right?
Yeah. Some of my best friends, it's been like meet over a couple of beers, and then before you know it, together all the time.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because we would have never seen this, right? We would never seen where we are today with the shop and stuff, which we'll talk about. But
You feel any vibes in here? Any good vibes?
It feels good in here, honestly. This feels better than the other place.
Nice.
The other place felt kind of heavy, and I feel like it was kind of heavy for you, right? And you just feel, I just got chills on that, so that's confirmation. But I feel like here you're able to be yourself. You know what I mean? You're not forcing it. It's kind of flowing for you, and I like it. You look good today.
You got the Last Supper table.
What's that?
You got the Last Supper table.
Yeah, the Last Supper table. Maybe I'll take a picture of that and throw it in the podcast so people know what we're talking about.
Yeah. I feel like you're like living your purpose, you know?
I hope so.
In this new transition, right? I feel like that had a purpose for you in your life at that time, and that's over, and you're doing this now.
Yeah. I was invited to do the podcast on the stage at the Ramsdale.
Oh, really? So kind of on stage speaking and stuff? Isn't that so interesting how we saw that?
Well,
and you're
talking.
like, no, that's not my thing, right?
Yeah. So I got to figure out who I'm going to have on and what kind of production level, because I'm not just going to do it with the iPhone. So I probably have to hire somebody that can film the whole thing and do something cool with it.
That'll be awesome.
This episode is brought to you by the Ramsdale Regional Center for the Arts. You can find them online at www.ramsdaletheater.org. Or you can reach them by phone at 231-398-9770. So check the website for the ticketing information. That's www.ramsdaletheater.org. These rad folks over at the Ramsdale Theater for the Arts want to remind you that on June 14th at 7:30 p.m., an Elton John tribute concert featuring Greggy and the Jets. Greggy and the Jets is an Elton John tribute band based in Central Florida, touring the country. Their live shows recreate the music, the energy, and the feeling of being at a classic-era Elton John concert. This episode is brought to you by Brandon Ball, broker-owner of Dwelling Realty, Keller Williams, Northern Michigan. Are you looking to sell your home? Then look no further. When you list your home with Brandon Ball, you'll get a trusted advisor who will guide you through the entire selling process. With extensive knowledge of the local market, he'll help price your home competitively to attract the right buyers. And with proven marketed strategies, your home will be seen by the most qualified of buyers. With 17 years in the business, you'll have someone experienced who's on your side. Contact Brandon today to get started selling your home. 231-690-4981. That's 231-690-4981. Or Brandon at dwellingrealty.com. This episode is brought to you by The Outsider of Manistee. We're showcasing their family tavern, their beer garden, and their arcade. Their large outdoor patio. This place is really awesome. It's very focused on family, getting people outside, getting them to tour the city of Manistee, showcasing our social district with their newly added indoor bar, which is awesome. They have 6 drafts, over 100 canned beers and canned cocktails to choose from on the menu. This is a really awesome place for the family. You got to mess the kids, fill their pockets full of quarters, let them have at those pinball machines. Mom, Dad, enjoy a nice cold draft beer or a canned cocktail. Get yourself something to eat, feed the family, feed the kids, wake up that liver a little bit, and then go enjoy downtown Manistee. These guys are located at 457 River Street. You can find them on outsidermanistee.com. Call them at 231-299-1235 or order for pickup and delivery at orderoutsider.com. Check this place out. You won't regret it. Susan, we're friends on Facebook, and I followed a couple of your posts that you had brought up. The physical trainer is what you wanted to be, right? You've done like Tough Mudders and shit like that.
I just recently did a Tough Mudder.
How was that?
It was awesome, honestly. Like, it was way more fun than I expected it to be.
Like, what got you to do that?
Oh, so I've been wanting to
only because like I do a bunch of like
I've been wanting to do
like that,
a Tough Mudder for many years. Like, I was a Beachbody coach for like 6-7 years, and I was certified to teach Insanity. Like, I love doing burpees. I'm that one odd person that likes burpees. And I could never find anybody to do it with me. And I just wasn't... It wasn't that I couldn't do the physical part of it myself, but I would feel weird going there by myself. So I just never did it because nobody would ever do it. To the Tough Mudder.
Oh, I feel ya. Okay.
And so my friend Adam, who I've known since we were 14... well, I've known him longer, but we've been friends since we were 14. He lives in Georgia, and he posted on Facebook saying, "Hey, I want to do the Tough Mudder in Atlanta. Somebody should do it with me." And I'm like reading through the comments on the post, hoping somebody else was going to volunteer. But I'm like, I'll do it. So I signed up for that. I had a whole 5 weeks to train and went down to Georgia, and we did the Tough Mudder.
What was it like? What distance, what obstacle?
Well, we only did the 5K, which you would think is 3.1 miles, but no, it's 5 miles.
So it was a 5-mile course.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, it said 5K, but it was misleading. So it was 5 miles. We could have definitely done 10, because the running distance in between the obstacles is like a quarter of a mile, and then there's an obstacle.
Gotcha.
So like you have plenty of time, and if you don't complete an obstacle or you choose to skip it, you can. Like, it's not mandatory. We pretty much attempted all of them except one, which was like this human ladder one where people were like climbing on each other's shoulders with like their grippy shoes, and we just looked at each other, and it was like the second to last obstacle, and we're like, no.
Yeah.
We weren't feeling the idea of someone's cleats going into our shoulders, so we just skipped that one. But we did all the rest of them. The electroshock therapy.
Yeah, what's up with that?
It's the very last obstacle.
and it's like you go under, like in the water on like a low crawl or something?
You can do that, or you can just run through it. It's 10,000 volts of electricity dispersed
dude.
throughout the whole, like, whatever, I don't know how much square feet that is, but there's like wires that are dangling, and from my understanding, some are live and some are not, so it's like miss or hit. They tell you to like cover your head as you're going, because they said if you get zapped in the head, you're going down.
You paid for that.
Yeah, I know. And so no. The one right before that is the ice. You jump into 34-degree ice.
Yeah, I can do that.
And but it's not just jumping in. You jump in, go under, and then come out. Like, you're in there for a minute, and you have to go under it a couple times. I was all about it until I realized how many times you got to go under, because you don't have time to catch your breath. You're just back under. So you're soaked in water, and then you go through this electricity. So some people get down and crawl. We just ran through it.
Soaking wet and then get electrocuted.
They actually told him halfway through to stop when we get halfway and kiss me for a picture, and then turn around and run. And like, that picture is posted, but it's very awkward, and because you can't really see what's going on in the picture. But he was definitely terrified of getting shocked, and the very right before he gets out, he got shocked in the shin, and it took him down. And like, I was laughing. I was laughing coming out. He looked like horrified, but it was fun.
So did you ever think about doing the Spartan race then?
We're doing the Spartan race in July.
Okay, because the same guy that made the Tough Mudder
Yep.
does the Spartan race. It's a different person now for the Tough Mudder, but the Spartan race seems wild.
Yeah, I'm not so excited about that, but he's making me do it. So he's coming up in July, and we're doing that in Grand
that's
Rapids.
a whole nother level. That's Spartan shit.
Yeah. But he said that from his research, if you choose to not do it or you fail an obstacle, you just got to do burpees.
Which you love, so.
Which love
I'm
doing.
good.
Yeah. You love to be punished, you know?
I got a friend, for all the running I do, I have a friend that's like, what are you running from? You know, what's the desire to put yourself through that kind of punishment?
I used to run a lot, and then I broke my foot, and then I was scared to run.
Well, now you got to do it for the...
Yeah. It's been,
Where's this
12
one
years.
at?
Grand Rapids,
Oh, okay. When is that?
July.
This July? Mm-hmm. July what?
That's a great question. 13th?
Oh, okay. Because the 27th would be a good place for you to be here in Manistee and running a race.
Yeah. The pier one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll think about it.
Well, if you're going to do the Spartan course...
I know, but that's just running.
It is just running. There's no obstacles. It's pretty It's pretty easy.
We should throw some obstacles into that race.
Well, I mean,
some electrocutions.
We have a kids' obstacle course race that you can run through.
Yeah,
Well, the 10K goes all the way down the beach. You got to run on the lake shore. That'll be pretty challenging. done it a few times. That's pretty challenging.
Yeah,
for me.
the Manistee Hills, that's what gets you.
Not in our race though. If you did the 5K, it's completely flat. There's zero elevation.
Okay, well, I'll think about it.
You can't win. All right, you two.
Good salesmanship, though.
Yeah, I'm trying. We're trying to bump up the numbers. You know what I mean? Although we're doing really well with numbers this year, we're up like 500%.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's to the point now where we're getting a little nervous that we might have just like an insane amount of people.
It's almost like you're able to focus your energy on that, and where your focus goes, energy flows. You know what I mean?
She's too much for me sometimes, you know. She could tell I was a little down in the tooth when she walked in, and she's like, "What's wrong?" Right when she walks in.
He had a big smile on his
wild.
face, and I'm like, "Nah, I'm feeling something." I'm like, "Let's hug it out." We're gonna hug it out.
It's nuts. It's all coming. It's all coming all at once at me, like that movie, Everything All at Once. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you gotta detach from outcomes. You know.
You should give him some Moldavite and see what happens.
Right.
What the hell is that?
That's how this whole thing got
It's this
started.
little-
Honestly.
This little green stone right here.
Is there any of that in there?
No.
Oh.
It's too expensive for that.
Yeah.
Where does it come from? Mars?
It comes from the Czech Republic.
And what does it do?
It flips your world upside down.
Creates life transformation.
Really?
Yeah, I had that one. I gave that to her. So this is a funny story. This is a great story to kick this off because in 2018, I was reading at crystal shops, and this guy that usually visited, he was a trucker. He'd come through on his trips and bring little gifts. And he had this big bag of rice, and in it had these little things that he was giving away. And I didn't know him. I had just started ringing that shop, and he was giving it to everyone else that worked there. And then he's like, "Here, I have something for you." And I had wanted Moldavite for years, but at that time, that's when I was on my job. I didn't have anything. I lost everything. I couldn't afford it. Those pieces like that are like hundreds of dollars. So,
Oh shit.
yeah. So he's like, "I have something for you," and he hands me that piece of Moldavite. And I was like flabbergasted because I was like, this is what I've been wanting, right? And it's a huge piece. So I kept it, and it completely flipped my whole life upside down. I kept going through transformation after transformation after transformation. And then I was like, I want to get rid of this motherfucker, for one. And two, like, I feel like it's somebody else's. I feel like it's Susan's. So
And I just told her, so I've been looking on Amazon at these pieces of Moldavite. And she's
Yeah.
like, actually.
I'm like, I have one for you. And a Herkimer diamond. So then some time, I kept forgetting it. And then all of a sudden, like, I gave it to her, and she put it in that little cage around her neck.
But as she hands it to me, she says, "Here you go. Have fun."
I was like, buckle up, buttercup.
So when you say transformations, and you were like, "Get this thing away from me," after you've had it for a while, you
Yeah.
go through transformations. It doesn't sound like a positive thing.
Well, it's a good thing if you want your life just completely uprooted.
Yeah.
Like, so
Keep
my
that away
life,
from me.
yeah, my life was completely uprooted. At that time, I went through a lot of craziness for years. It was just like consistent cycles of, I moved a lot anyway, but like moving cities and like deep transformations. And then, I gave it to Susan, and I was like, buckle up, buttercup. And as soon as I gave it to her and she put it on, her
That's
whole life
pretty
started
much
changing.
everything happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like good or bad?
I mean, all good. It was
Yeah.
definitely all good. I don't even know which part happened first, honestly. Right after, was it? Yeah, right after you gave it to me, I went to the Higher Self store with my friend Alex, and looking around, and I just said, "Hey, Lorrie, we should do this." And then the next day, we got online and Google and what's on River Street. We were actually looking at the old Hokinson's building, but it was already taken. And I said, well, I know Don is selling that building, and I think it's empty. Maybe he'll lease it to us till he sells it. And so I'm like going through my phone trying to find his number. It was like deleted from my phone. I don't know. I couldn't find his number. I had no idea how to get a hold of this man. So I go to Family Fair, and the checkout lane next to me, Don's there. And he's like,
What a rad dude, by the way.
"Hey, Susan, how you doing?" Like, he spotted me. And I was like, holy crap. Well, actually, we were trying to find you. I was going to get a hold of you. Asked if he would be interested in leasing out the building, and he said, yeah, absolutely. And so we had the keys a week later.
Yeah.
And then we sat there in an empty building, look at each other going, now what do we do? Like, neither of us have any money.
Yeah.
How are we going to get all this stuff?
Yeah, roll through that.
And
Tell me about that.
we just started buying stuff a little at a time. And then I found a wholesale site that approved us for a minimal amount of money, gave us 90 days or 60 days.
Kind of like a consignment deal.
Kinda. You just had 60 days to pay it back.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And we had a really good friend of ours who believed in what we were doing, and she, gave us a small investment. And
It's pretty much self-funded. Like, we sat in that building, empty building. We're like, well, we could start a podcast for now.
Right.
We were just going to do services there, right? Because she does services and I do services. So we're just like, well, we have that. And then she was more into the retail side than I was. So she just started going. She just started running with it. And it's pretty much all the retail Susan funded mostly. And we just started, like, as things were coming to us. And then we're like, we could create this group center, this little meditation center. And we could have classes in there. And Susan put up those walls and hung the door. And we have this meditation center with, like, fingerprint. We were just literally, like, flying by the seat of our pants, and whatever ideas came to us that felt good, we kind of leaned into it. And now if you go to the shop, it looks like we've had this, like, detailed business plan for a long time, but really we were literally just trusting,
winging it,
that it's going to come to us when we need to. And we even said that in our first podcast, like, we don't know what we're doing here. We don't have any money. We're just like, your guess is as good as ours if you want to follow our journey and how we're doing this. Come along with us. But
then we never did a third podcast. We
got so busy with
bought
all
microphones,
the
and then, like, they're still in a box, actually sealed.
Yeah. We started doing all the other things.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time, but you guys should try to keep that going, I think.
Yeah.
Really,
we'll probably get back at it.
Even when you move to Detroit, you can do it remotely.
Yeah, and they even follow those journeys, how they kind of split. Because it was weird how it happened, because we could do this, because Higher Self is a crystal shop, right? And we started looking at all these things, started getting all this stuff for it. It was so weird because I was in, but we always knew, like, there is a chance that my journey could change, because my life is always just like that. I never know when I'm going to a place. I never know when I'm leaving. It's my path to, like, follow the call, right? Follow the call of spirit. So I was, like, so hesitant to, like, latch onto anything at the shop, because I don't know. I just felt like something may change for me. But Susan was still running with it. She just kept going, and she's like, do you want to do this? You want to do that? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I can't. I'm so afraid to
we
commit.
originally, like, I originally had, like, a much bigger plan, because I felt like I was supposed to do something much bigger. But then, like, we sat down and talked one night. I think it was before our first podcast, and she's like, so do you actually, like, see yourself doing this? I said, no. I see it happening, and I want it to happen. I want to hand somebody this plan and see it roll out, but I don't want to be responsible for, like, I don't want that to be my weight to carry. It is a whole 360 plan on how we combat the whole drug problem and addiction here in Manistee.
Expand on that.
There you go.
So, here, let me get out my notes, because this is where I started taking notes for. So, in 2021, I was dating my best friend at the time, and things didn't go well. And when things ended with him, I pretty much lost myself and had to really figure out who the hell I was again. And I thought, again, my course was personal training and fitness. So that's when I finished my certification for personal training. And I never did anything with it.
What happened with your friend?
Sat on it. We just didn't work out.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. I thought maybe something happened to him.
Oh, well, it did.
Okay.
So toward the later part of that year, maybe August, I think it was, my oldest son had overdosed on heroin a few times, and I realized how bad of a situation he was in. He was dealing with drug-induced psychosis and bipolar disorder, and it was a mess. So then fast forward to that January, I started talking to my ex again, like just friends, and realized he also is really deep in addiction. And it kind of all spiraled from there. Like two of the most important people in my life were struggling. And my son is doing really well now. He is doing really well. He's been clean for a couple years, and he's on his medication, which he pays for out of pocket because he doesn't have health insurance because he makes too much money. And so I worry a little bit about that. But my friend, I apologize if you watch this podcast. I'm not going to say names, but he'll know who I'm talking about. He's still lost. He's still lost in that world. And then I started dating somebody else who was also deep in addiction. And that's right about the time she gave me this Moldavite. And I pretty much just found my purpose and my plan, and was able to cut ties with people that didn't serve me and my purpose. But that plan, so I'm gonna give a few statistics real quick, just so we can kind of understand why is it not here? This is the wrong document.
Take your time.
Okay.
This would be a good place for a ad break.
Yeah. That is a good place for an ad break.
Yeah.
Where is it at?
I just don't. One of the things that I'm going to have somebody from Center Wellness on the podcast, and I also want to talk to somebody who's running like the Friendship Society, who kind of understands how that
Cassandra.
whole organization works. If you could link me up, that'd be great, because I'm going to try
Have you
to.
found someone from Centra?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got like their director coming on.
Kelly at Clean Lines. She does a great
Here
job
we
in the
go.
community with addiction and things, and like
Yeah,
helping
actually,
people.
it's funny that you say that, because you had mentioned her the last time you were on the
Yeah.
podcast, and then we talked a couple of times about like the running stuff, and then for this morning at the gym, she's there every morning.
Yeah.
She's a psychopath when it comes to working
Yeah.
at the gym. Sometimes, because I go twice a day sometimes, and
Yeah.
she's in there the second time too, and I'm like, what the fuck? But I thought I was the only psycho. But anyways, I saw her this morning, and I'm like, I should talk to her.
You totally should. They're on
Yeah.
they have a purpose too, and they're just great people.
You ever talked to Cindy Jacoby? No. She's actually the face of a lot of overdose awareness stuff around here, because her son, Jeremy Jacoby, overdosed 2008, I think. Maybe 2009. No, it was somewhere in there. So, yeah. But
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I'm not in that world. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So like when I have conversations about it, I'm usually pretty quiet, because I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it'd be good to get some awareness around it.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I want to learn more about it, because, like I said, I'm not to say that I'm not trying to put a stereotype when I say in that world. It's just that I don't know
yeah, I
anybody.
get it, right.
I don't know anybody,
Right.
that's like uses drugs or anything like that.
You don't see it every
know?
day, right? Like even just where I live, I see it every day.
Yeah, like I see none of that. You know?
yeah, when people come to the bar that are like new to town, I'll ask where they're from, and they're like, "Oh, we just moved here in the neighborhood." I said, "Like in this neighborhood?" And they'll be like, "Well, yeah." Like, but on purpose? Like you realize how many drug houses are in like this 2 blocks?
Right.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I hear that shit a lot too, and it's like, man, it's so, and the transientness of humans lately in this community. Like, I go from knowing everybody to hardly knowing anybody.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah.
And then, like, you know, I run super early in the morning. 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And the amount of people that I see walking in the streets and shit, and I'm like, where'd you come from?
I can take my dog out to use the bathroom and just go out in my backyard and see people nodding out behind me on some steps. Or,
Shut the fuck up.
yeah, a pizza guy showed up one day and hands, look at this guy's nodding out. Pizza guy hands the pizza. He's like, "You okay, dude?" He's like, "Yeah." And I'm just like, it's a shame. You know, it's sad. And it's not one person I see out there doing. I've seen it multiple times. I see them walking down past my house to go by. You know, I see it a lot where I am.
I'm interested.
It's like a bubble, right? It's like on this side, it's like this touristy, beautiful area that people absolutely love, and they bring their families to, and they come to these restaurants, right, which is so great, and they come to all of our places. But then you go over there in Maxwell Town, and it's just a different world. It's a different world we live in.
Yeah,
at
and
least
that's
on
where
our
I do the
couple
majority
blocks.
of my running. I
Yeah.
really like running in and around the streets down
Right.
there, coming around.
Yeah.
But
It's not even just Maxwell Town. There's a whole lot on the north
Yeah.
side too.
it's all
Yeah,
over the
north side
place
too.
because
Yeah,
in the
right.
mornings here, I see it in the morning here downtown. I
Yeah.
see it, you know, in
Yeah,
in the quote unquote upper level neighborhoods. You know, people
Mm-hmm.
just like I don't know. You're brand new to this community. Boom. I know I don't know you, and you're walking around like, you know, lost.
Yeah, I didn't know when I moved here either, and I guess I only have the reference of Maxwell Town because that's where I live. So, where I live, I'm surrounded by multiple, and they sometimes they park in front of my house to walk over to that house, you know, around the corner. So, I see a lot of it where I live, and Susan sees a lot of it.
I see a lot of it because I've dated a few of them.
Yeah,
But I've changed that pattern. So, I just want to start. There's a book called Understanding Addiction, and it is written by two doctors who became addicts because they were prescribing themselves pills. And it goes into the science behind it and the reality of it and gives statistics rather than trying to dismantle the stigma that's around substance abuse disorder. And because you hear it all the time, I hate when people say, "Oh, look at those junkies!" Look, like they're people.
Yeah.
And I apologize if I get choked up because it's a really deep, like, situation. Like, this is a real problem that Manistee needs to do something about. I mean, the whole country needs to do something about it, but it's really bad here. And last I checked, Manistee County per capita is number 1 in the state for meth and heroin.
Follow up with that stat. That's fucking wild if that's true.
It's per capita.
yeah. I looked it up last time. It's true.
Yeah, it's bad. And I feel I will be the bold one to say that I feel like the police are doing absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. They're sitting on it, and it's pissing me off because I watch people hand over evidence that should be enough to take down people that are dealing this stuff, and they're doing nothing. And it's frustrating. But anyways, so if anybody is interested in, like, understanding more in depth about it, I would highly recommend this book. There's an audio book. It's called Understanding Addiction, by Dr. Church Smith and Dr. Jason Hunt. It is a very short book, and on audio, I think it's like a little under 3 hours of audiobook.
I got it right here.
So in there, he quotes, "Did you know that you can go through 4 years of undergraduate work, 4 years of medical school, and several years of residency, and of that time, never take a single class in addiction science?" So we have a lot of doctors out there prescribing opiates, stimulants, whatever medication without any understanding of addiction. And like, just to create awareness around the stigma, like, They're not junkies, they're people. Nobody's in it to like harm, nobody wants to harm themselves. Nobody wants to hurt the people they care about. Nobody sets out to intentionally destroy other people's lives or their own. And addiction doesn't have any like prerequisite. Like it can be anybody. It can be a doctor. It can be, I hate when I hear people say, oh, well, my child will never do that. And Lorrie and I both know that when you say something will never happen to you, it most definitely will happen to you. And I would never, ever wish that upon not even my worst enemy, to have to deal with watching a loved one struggle with addiction.
Yeah, some of that, I've talked to friends that have had children that have overdosed and died, or continue to overdose and keep going in and out of rehab. And it's like, I'm interested when you're finished there. I'm interested to hear your take on, being a mother to somebody who's struggling with that.
I mean, just the rehab part of it, I have a lot of statistics on that right here. So, the American Medical Association will recognize diabetes and heart disease as diseases, right? Both of those are self-induced. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. I mean, for the some of it is
for the most part.
For the most part, yeah.
Type 2 diabetes specifically. Type 1 is genetic.
Yeah.
Type 2 diabetes is self-induced. You ate too much sugar, period, for too long of a period of time. Heart disease, you may have, some genetic makeup that contributes to it, but for the most part, you're just unhealthy. You didn't take care of your body.
Yeah.
Addiction's the same thing. You may have made that first choice to use the substance one time, but here's a little bit of science behind what addiction, the root of it. Everybody has a prefrontal cortex. That's kind of what I focus on in breath work. That is your monkey mind, that is your thinking mind, that is your constant, I have to pay the bills, I have to deal with this, I have a doctor's appointment. Like everything, you have 10 million thoughts running through your prefrontal cortex all the time. Some people are dropped on their head as a baby, or, whatever may happen. If you have any sort of damage done to your prefrontal cortex, you're instantly at a higher risk for mental disorders or addiction. Some people have the willpower to, if you go to the bar and you just want a drink, you can sit and sip on a drink. Some people don't have the ability to just sip on a drink. Some people want all of it. Give it all to me. And you might not see them as an addict because they don't drink for, 3 weeks at a time.
Well, it's socially acceptable too.
Right.
To drink.
It's not only socially acceptable, it's socially encouraged. It is.
Yeah.
It is. You get lectured for not. Why would you not want to drink? It's
We're
just
having a
one.
good time here.
Right. But yeah, the behaviors create the disease. But the prefrontal cortex, some people just don't have the ability to stop the impulse. They have lack of impulse control. And not only that, but there's a dopamine receptor. Some people's dopamine receptors are normal functioning.
Yeah.
Some have to constantly, you get adrenaline junkies who constantly have to go out and create all the dopamine. You'll see people who are recovering addicts who will then become skydivers because they have to, it's always there. That part doesn't fix itself. You always have to feed that dopamine receptor in some manner, otherwise you're going to go back to using.
You see a lot of those guys and gals into like ultra running and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, with emotional trauma, like CPTSD, or, something induced by either childhood, like borderline personality disorder, they're in impulse control with that. Those people have impulse control issues. And
you have to figure out your method to control it. And some people don't know that that's even a problem, so they don't know what they're trying to fix. And then they struggle and they're just wanting something.
Yeah.
And then you add trauma to that, and then you're just trying to, you break your foot and you go to the doctor and they give you Vicodin. and then you take Vicodin for 6 weeks, and then they cut you off. Well, no, those dopamine receptors have been there, and they've realized, holy shit, I've felt great this whole time, and now I have nothing. Well, you know what's cheaper? Heroin.
Mm-hmm.
And 97% of the heroin that's out there is not heroin. Now it's fentanyl. So that's why people are dying. And it's just getting that reward center, the dopamine reward center, to have a healthy reward of dopamine, not using substances is the problem. But the whole concept behind what we were talking about initially was correcting the problem from the beginning. So teaching children, youth, how to cope with their own emotions, how to deal with things that may be going on at home.
Self-soothe, self-regulate, meditation, getting in contact with that mind-body-soul connection so they can understand their body, what their body's telling them, and some people are so disconnected.
Teaching them somatics, teaching them to connect those emotions to the body sensations and understanding what that means, how to regulate their feelings. And there are some kids out there that are living with parents who are either very abusive, or they're being sexually assaulted, or they're doing drugs. So we don't know what kids are dealing with, and step one is creating a place for youth to be where it's safe and they're being taught and monitored and having positive influences to set the standard from the beginning. So my concept was big brothers, big sisters, similar to that, only because of liability purposes, and my mouth is really dry. Because of liability purposes, I wasn't trying to have an adult that I got to do background checks on and pair. I was going to pair them up with a high school student and have them meet at this rec center. I wanted a rec center like a YMCA where you charge a membership. People to the public can pay a membership and use this rec center, but have this sub program where I have a mentorship program between youth and elementary school or middle school, and they meet there at the rec center. They can play basketball, they can play laser tag, they can climb rock walls, whatever. This little kid now has a big brother, a big sister to hang out with and do cool fun shit with. That's a positive thing, and not have to deal with what's going on at home. And meanwhile, this older kid now knows that they have to be a positive influence to this younger kid, so they're more likely to stay out of trouble. That's step one. Step two is education. Teaching people the reality of drugs. Dare didn't do shit.
No.
Nobody's going to give you drugs for free. No one's just going to lure you into a van and hand you a bunch of ecstasy pills. That doesn't happen. I love seeing those Halloween posts, so be careful, your kids might... No one's going to give away their drugs to little kids. That's just not going to happen. I don't want to say that and make claims, because I don't, somebody might do it now just to prove me wrong. But teach them the reality of drugs. Teach them that you're probably going to try something. Your friend might hand you a joint. Your friend might have stolen some Vicodin from your mom.
Here's the thing about that sharing shit, because back in the day when I was growing up, we would just a friend would be like, hey, you want to hit off of this?
Right.
I got a joint, whatever, you take it, and there's no worry. Today though, you don't know what's in that fucking thing. You don't know where they got it from. I got a friend right now he'll go to a concert and just randomly smoke weed with somebody he doesn't know, and I'm like, man, even that, you have no idea what's in that, bro.
Yep.
Take these.
There are young, I've seen some stories on, I can't remember what the TikTok account is, but they share these stories of kids that have died from fentanyl, and one story was a 13-year-old girl at a party, and she hit a joint, and it was laced with fentanyl, and she went home and died. And she had never done drugs before, so it can happen.
Just buy it from a dispensary.
Right.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jesus.
No, it's sad, but not only like the fact that they're gonna try it, but like understanding, because again, you're feeding different dopamine reward centers in your brain, and some of these kids are not even your brain's not even fully developed yet when you're a teenager or a child.
Shit, not until your mid-20s or more.
Yep. And teaching them that you're gonna love the drugs. You're gonna love it so much that you're going to willingly give up your life, your job, your kids, your house, your car for that drug. Like, so people need to be taught the reality of it. And don't just stay away from drugs because drugs are bad. Stay away from drugs because you're gonna lose everything. And
Including yourself.
and including yourself, and understanding what you're going to put your family through if you do that. And I had this conversation with somebody who said, well, I don't see the problem in using crack recreationally once in a while. And I said, the problem isn't that. The problem, for one, is nobody uses crack recreationally. That's not a recreational drug, so that's a problem in itself. Problem two is you might be able to use crack one time and walk away from it, but whoever you're using it with might not. And you're not just ruining that person's life, you are ruining the life of that person, their mother, their brothers, their sisters, their girlfriends, their whatever, kids. You're ruining 20 lives minimum for giving one person some crack. Like, people don't understand the reality of that.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't sit well with me that people can sell drugs that are killing people because they just want some money in their pocket. And they're only thinking about, well, that kid's dumb enough to use it. Then no, you're ruining way more lives than just that person. So yeah, educating them on the reality of the situation, having support for the people who are already in that situation and living that. And then the third component is the people that are currently there. Having a detox program where people can anonymously, 24 hours a day, reach out and text or make a phone call and say, I'm ready to get clean. And they meet at this anonymous location, and the people who have already been there and been in that and done it themselves or been through it with other people who are, educated and qualified to help detox somebody. And they don't have to tell anybody they're there. We would ask them to sign a waiver stating if medical intervention is needed, we will have to call 911. Otherwise, we won't have to call anybody. We need one contact person, if possible, so that if a missing person's report is filed, we can let them know that you're safe. And then we just sit with them 3, 7, 10 days, let them detox. Let them cry, let them scream, play video games, entertain them, teach them, other healing things, breath work, whatever it may be that gets them through that process. Once they're out of that process, then you go into an actual treatment program where you're in a rehab. Once the rehab is done, that is where the statistics get really, I don't know if I'm supposed to swear on this podcast.
Fuck yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So but
Gets really
the
fucked
rehab,
up.
like the rehab deal though, isn't it like something crazy, like 90% go back to drugs or something?
So, here, let me find so it takes 2 years for your prefrontal cortex from the time you stop using drugs. 2 years to fully repair itself. At the end of 2 years, your relapse rate is still 80%.
That's gnarly.
80%. 40 to 60% relapsed from alcohol within the first year after leaving a treatment center. Drugs like opiates, heroin, much higher. And general consensus from the addiction science community states that no more than 20% of people in recovery will escape the clutches of addiction and move on successfully with their life. period. Of all people who go to rehab, only 20% of them will ever get out of that lifestyle.
What's that say about the rehab?
Right. And many of them are like, what, 30 days?
Yeah. So
Yeah, which is nuts.
80% of them will fail. And it says, and what other endeavor would you settle for an 80% failure rate? So, like, if someone has diabetes and they're like, well, we can put you on this medication, then take you off it in 30 days and hope that that's good enough. Or someone has cancer, like, and, well, there's a 20% chance you'll survive, but we still want to do all this stuff and have you pay all this money. Would you do it? No, I wouldn't. I'd be like, I'm going to die anyway, so why even try? And so it's not until you reach 3 years that it drops down to 70% success rate. 3 years of recovery. And this is 3 years of monitored recovery, meaning you have constant testing being done at random. Like you're under a microscope for 3 years. So jobs, there's a thing called a PHP for medical professions. For airlines, it's called HIMSS. I don't know what the attorneys one's called, but there's one for attorneys as well. And those professions are set up and publicly funded for addicts in those professions to regain their license back from whatever it was. So, like, if a doctor is caught struggling with addiction, they have to go through this 5-year program. It's 5 full years.
Yeah.
That is funded because we don't want a surgeon who is on opiates or an alcoholic doing surgery on you. So they do it, and I understand why those are set for those professions. But that is the only profession that, like, to the general public, not a thing exists like that. There's nothing beyond whatever rehab and 1 year of sober living that is generally publicly funded, or even most insurances will cover.
So if you're in one of those, I'm gonna get this right. You're in one of those professions. If you're a doctor, yeah, it's like paid for you to go through recovery. Mm-hmm. Oh, no shit.
Mm-hmm. 5 years.
That's wild. Nothing out of pocket.
If you're trying to get your license back, your medical license back.
Yeah. Wow.
And once you hit 5 years, then the success rate becomes 80%. But there's nothing like that for the general public. So if you're not a doctor or an attorney or a nurse or a pilot, then if you struggle with addiction, you only have a 20% chance that you'll ever escape that world.
That's if you have insurance, and a lot of people who are on the street don't have insurance, not even Medicaid, right? So they don't have the resources. So
that's where the other part of that plan came in. So then you get out of the treatment, which would be rehab, whether it's 30, 60, 90 days. And in that rehab, they should be teaching people how to cope with their emotions, how to heal from the traumas that they've been dealing with, how to work the stuff that they've been masking to avoid. Once you're out of there, then it becomes a reward system. Then you're trying to feed that dopamine reward system. And the goal is incentive. People need an incentive. How many people you see get out of rehab and go right back to the street? They have no house, they have no job, they have no family.
So we had that rehabilitation place here.
Mm-hmm.
I saw issue with it. As an outsider who doesn't even come close to having the kind of information that you have on this kind of stuff. But one of the things I took issue with was that these people were going there for rehab, but then after a certain period of time, they were kind of let to come into the community and shop, hang out, whatever. Mm-hmm. So hear me out on this. So then they're making friends in the community, okay? Some good, some bad. And then when their month is up, their 30 days is up, they had an option to take the bus back or not get on the bus. And I would see a lot of them not get on the bus, and then they could kind of stay here in the community, and rehab didn't work. So it kind of
fuels it, right?
It kind of fuels it.
The
and
problem.
You know, to speak a little bit larger on that, I have a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, who is connected with somebody who does rehabilitation clinics throughout like the country. And I wouldn't be able to tell you how many. It's more than 10, let's say. They have more than 10, and it's an income generator like rental units are. And they're running it more as we need to get people in here and not get people out of here.
Right.
Which is, and that's I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but that's exactly what is going on with this particular rehab investor.
Yeah.
You know, and my buddy was like, I'm thinking about getting into that. You know, because he's looking at it as an income stream, and he's not looking at it from the perspective like you're trying to help people.
Right.
So I wonder how much of that goes on.
A lot, because if you, and I don't want to be quoted on the exact numbers here because I don't remember, but there's a documentary called Dosed, I believe is what it's called, on Netflix. And they throw out some statistics in there about the FDA.
Yeah, it is called Dosed.
The FDA generates, I want to say, $800 billion in revenue from addiction, from the opiate crisis. However, they pay out $300 million a year in opiate prevention and helping people recover. You see the problem with that? They're profiting from people dying, and that's a problem.
Even these rehab centers, it's not uncommon for someone to go to rehab or NA and meet someone and go off and do drugs together. Like a personal story of mine is my brother-in-law. He started doing Percocets for back pain. He went to a doctor, got Percocets for back pain. He became addicted to them. So the doctor suggested he go to NA. So he started going to NA and met a guy who did heroin, and it was much cheaper and much easier to get than going to a doctor and get a prescription. So he started doing heroin, and he ended up having like $1,000 a month or $1,000 a week habit in heroin, and
Jesus, that's a lot of money.
ultimately ran out of money and committed suicide.
Fuck.
Yeah. And that's just one story in my family. There's so many stories of opiates and heroin in my immediate through. And then once, that happened, I have another brother-in-law who overdosed on heroin. I only have two sisters, right? Both brother-in-laws got caught up in drugs, and then that trickled down to some of their children. So the loss, right? The pain and loss of losing a father, and then that trickled down into drug addiction for them.
There's even sober living homes, like, 'cause there's some that are government funded.
Yeah.
And those government funded is all about numbers. And you think the majority of people running those things care if those people stay sober? No, they just care about getting that government check. And that's the freaking problem. But it's
not just people on the street using it. There are business owners and, people just like us who are out here recreationally using crack, heroin, you know.
In that documentary, the lady there, she is a what do you call it? Functioning addict, heroin addict. No one even knows that she uses, but she has a major problem, and it dives into her life. And eventually, after she goes to treatment, it shows her family going into her room and finding how many foils she had. Like, it is a major problem. There's people that you don't even know are using.
I've known functional meth
You said
users.
earlier that you don't know anybody, but I guarantee
I know some people, but it's mostly like I have a really good friend of mine who's 20 years sober, right? And he was doing shit like hiding fucking pints everywhere in the house, buying all kinds of shit, and very high functioning alcoholic, right?
Yeah.
Like super, and we kind of lived in the same world. We were both in the beer and wine business, and like the salt of the earth human. And he and his wife moved away, and he had a job someplace, and this was before like the smartphone situation where you could just send somebody a picture. He like emailed me a picture. He's like, look at all the whale. I said, look, because he was kind of a big bastard, you know what I mean? And then he was like almost like anemic, super like thin. Like, fuck, dude, you look horrible, actually. And then it wasn't a few months later. He was like, he went into rehab. And,
Yeah.
he was like, and then when he talks about it, he's very open about it, you know. I think it's part of the process.
It is definitely.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was just wild.
That's why Beachbody coaches become Beachbody coaches, because they're not going to work out unless they have that accountability and they're forcing other people to do it. And that's the same concept with like AA and things like that. Is they're staying engaged in the community to be a positive influence for other people, that they know that if they didn't have that accountability on their shoulders, that they wouldn't do it. And so it's accountability plays a huge role in it, and then giving somebody a purpose after they finish treatment, like giving them a job, giving them a place to live, whether it's sober living or, you know, some sort of transition home where they go to work, you know, working with the public again and getting out there, and then giving them incentives. Maybe I give them a job at the rec center. Now they're doing janitor stuff, but they stay clean for 30, 60, 90 days. They reach a milestone, 6 months, a year. We start paying for trade school. We pay for them to finish their GED. Someone wants to be an apprentice for a tattoo shop. I get a hold of, you know, Kelly and
Brandon.
Yes, Brandon, and say, hey, this person's interested in tattooing. They've been clean for a year now. Would you be interested? You know, like those kind of community connections, and then it just cycles back into the whole thing, from youth through active addiction, through recovery, and you
So it's
just
like
loop
prevention.
it all together.
And then also there's so many aspects to sobriety. Like, it's not just drugs are bad or alcohol's bad. You know why you do it, right? Take accountability for it. Go find your purpose. It's also about healing the wounds that cause the addictions, and because there's always a reason for the addiction. There's always a root cause that doesn't get fully healed. They kind of just go through the motions through rehab, and then they get out and they're like, I'm sober. Take accountability and go do something. Right. But if you don't heal those wounds, you're going to be covering it with something. That's why alcoholics, they stop drinking, they start gambling, they start eating peanut butter on the side of their bed, keeping peanut butter in their nightstand because they have to have sugar, you know, because sugar is addiction.
Like, is that what the peanut butter is there for?
Right. I mean, I was going to keep my dirty jokes to myself. But, and then also, you know, or they use it like sex, right? They have a sex addiction now, and it's like, because you didn't heal the root cause, you're just trading it, one addiction for another.
And that is basically why we started the shop, was the focus on the services to heal that trauma.
Let's talk about what you guys are doing there then. It's a good place to segue into that.
Yeah. You want to start?
Talk about the healing stuff, because I you know, forgive me, but, you know, Lorrie kind of was talking about this a while ago, and all this stuff together, and then I went and kind of looked at your profile. You're doing some interesting things there, like with breath work and stuff like that, and I'd really love for you to expand on that.
So initially I started off with somatic therapy, which is learning. It's a body-based therapy. It's kind of like sitting and talking with a therapist, only instead of telling me all your problems, we focus on the sensations you're feeling in your body and why you're feeling them, and connecting the dots, and then allowing that to resolve, because our bodies naturally like to complete actions. Like if you go to punch somebody and you stop at their face, are you fulfilled with that?
No, never.
Right.
You got to go all the way through.
So like you have to complete the action. And in a lot of instances, our bodies are holding on to trauma that we never fully understood or really connected the dots. So it's working through that kind of thing to understand why I've had this pain in my back or my shoulder for, 15 years. I don't remember ever injuring myself. And then realizing that, when you were 17 years old, this, I don't know, I'm really bad at making up scenarios,
I get it. There's some trauma there.
Right.
You've been holding it in that spot for a while.
So yeah, it started with that. And then I tried doing a practice session with my son, and he wasn't taking me seriously because I'm his mom. And then in that same certification, part of it was psychedelic integration. And what that just means is being with somebody while they're under the influence of, say, mushrooms, mushrooms are typically the only one that you'd want to go with because it's short-lived. But in that time frame, it shuts down the prefrontal cortex. I don't know if you've ever taken mushrooms or not, or any sort of psychedelics.
Not yet.
Not yet.
We'll never say never.
Right? Yeah.
But your subconscious takes over, and things that you've been dealing with in life come forward, and you really have little control over it, depending on how much you take.
Sounds scary.
It can be scary. I don't want to stray from the topic too much, but so my son can't take psychedelics because he has psychosis. I learned this through that course, that people with schizophrenia or psychosis or something of that sort can become addicted to hallucinogens, which most people cannot. It's not addictive. It's actually anti-addictive. If you've ever had, you can ask any friends of yours that you may have that have experienced this.
I got a few that have experienced it. It's pretty wild.
They don't come down from a mushroom trip or an acid trip and say, I want to do that again, like right now. Nobody does that. They need time to process what happened and to recover from it. It's a lot. When you cry, when you have a really good cry, you watch a sad movie or whatever, you feel emotionally lifted. Like you're not ready to watch that movie again right now. And it's the same thing with psychedelics. However, people who have psychosis or schizophrenia, hallucinogens can put their reality to make it more normal. It makes them feel less different, so they like to stay in that world. So it's not safe necessarily for somebody with psychosis. So then I started searching for other routes that I could do to help my son. And I will put this on the record. I've asked him to participate in a breathwork session. He's my son, so he's giving me challenges here, but this is why I did this. Because breathwork, when you breathe in a certain rhythm, a certain way, there's many different types of breathwork. I'm sure you've heard of like Wim Hof.
Yep.
That's pretty much what we do. Holotropic breathing, but in a short condensed version of it put to music and my guidance through the whole thing. So when you breathe like that, holotropic breathing can be 2 to 3 hours. So my journeys are only an hour. Mm-hmm. And 45 minutes of that is intense breathing. But during that period of time, your prefrontal cortex shuts down. Your body releases serotonin and dopamine and DMT. So our bodies naturally release DMT when you're born and when you die. And women release it also when they give birth. But it is a very intense psychedelic. I have not actually done DMT, which is why I won't ever guide somebody through it, because I don't know what they're experiencing necessarily. And in that time period, with the breathwork journey that we put together, we select music, and the music selection is done intentionally, as well as writing a script. Because when your brain is in theta wave, you are in a hypnotic state of mind, so you are more susceptible to positive reinforcement, affirmations, whatever. So I kind of speak a lot of that and pump you up and get you to think positive, whatever the topic may be. Like the one that I'm doing this weekend is called self-love and forgiveness. So it's going to be a lot about internal work.
Is it a one-on-one session, or you do this with
No, I'm doing group session.
Okay, no.
So I have,
share that
everybody
information.
can trip together.
well, yeah. We're doing Saturday at 3 p.m., Sunday at noon, and then I have one at the Four Directions Alchemy on Monday at her place.
But yeah, at our shop.
At our shop Saturday and Sunday this week.
Saturday and Sunday this week.
Is it like drop-in, or you make appointments for that?
I have
Probably encourage people to
links.
link that.
I
send them to
prefer
the Facebook
people not
page.
to drop in because I don't know how many people are going to be there. I need to kind of make sure I don't get too many people because we have limited space.
Brush your teeth.
And I guess this will be and I guess this will be already posted probably after that even happens. Maybe.
When is
I'm
it?
not
Yeah.
sure.
This Saturday?
This weekend, yeah.
Saturday and
probably have
Sunday. So yeah, in that time you breathe, and it is a lot. It's physically challenging. The first probably 15, 20 minutes of it, you have to talk yourself into keep going. Once you reach a certain point, your brain your body takes over. and you work out a lot of deep things in your brain and your subconscious in that time frame. I think of all of the breathwork sessions I've done for people, which I've done quite a few, I've had maybe 2 people come out of it not crying.
No shit.
Yeah. We did one on New Year's Eve party at the shop because we didn't have anything in there. It was just an big empty building. We're like, we'll do a sober New Year's Eve party for anyone who is either sober or wants to come in and just not drink on New Year's Eve. So we had about 12 people there, and Susan led it, and it was pretty powerful. She has a video on our Facebook business page.
Like 8-second clip of them screaming.
Yeah.
Because
you could feel the whole room. You could feel it. We both were like emotional because I was just holding space for people. She was leading it. And then it was dark in there. We had 12 people, and they all screamed at the same time. It's pretty intense and pretty cool, but there's like an emotional release that happens that even if you're not doing the breath work, I'm sitting on the side just watching, and I could feel that emotional lift. Like I had tears in my eyes. I get choked up even thinking about it because it's just the power in that scream that comes out. You can just feel everyone's trauma, just like pretty much they're expelling it, right? Like not all of it, right? It goes in layers, but a lot of it in one session.
I mean, and I'm thinking like, was it just everybody doing like box breathing? I mean,
no, it's not box breathing. So it's like 2-part breathing.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy what can happen when you quiet that monkey mind, like through different techniques. And then plus you're like focused on the breathing. This is how it is for me when I'm doing anyway, because I've done it with Susan, had great results. Like I'm focused on my breathing. So I'm not like, I'm not paying attention to what's going on in my head because I'm just focused on this breathing at first. And all of a sudden the monkey mind shuts down. And then you start listening to the music. I'm covered in chills down my head, my head to toe right now, even talking about it. You listen to the music, and the words in the music are about like building you up. You're powerful. You're strong. You're self-love. Like you're gonna let it all go. And then she builds it up. She's building it up, saying everything that's happened to you. You're not everything that's happened to you. You're gonna create new stories now, right? And it goes into this point, and then it goes to a release, and she's like, now scream. And then when you scream, it's like all that build up, right?
Chill.
Yes. And my hair is standing up.
The scream comes after a pretty long breath hold. You are holding your breath for a while. So like you're able to do that because the first 30 minutes of breathing, you're off gassing so much CO2, you're building a CO2 tolerance. A lot of people in the time frame will just not breathe. They'll stop breathing. Because their body has so much oxygen in it that your body's I don't need to breathe right now. And you have to consciously, you'll eventually realize, hey, I'm not breathing, I gotta start breathing again. And worst thing that's gonna happen is you're gonna pass out and you're laying on your back. So if you pass out, you'll
start breathing again.
You'll start breathing again.
Well, so no one's afraid, no one has passed out.
Yeah. Nobody, that has not happened to me.
It sounds wild to me. It sounds like you could fill a gymnasium full of people.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so I actually just ordered these headphones, which will be here tomorrow. I'm really excited about them because the group session we did on New Year's Eve was there was no headphones. It was just music and me talking. And I've done a few of those, and I feel like in that instance, sometimes you can't really hear me over the music, or I'm not sure. I have to walk around and make sure everybody can hear me talking because I don't typically talk. I don't want to yell and have it be like whatever. So these headphones are going to pretty much create everybody's little own world. And music sounds different coming from a speaker versus on your ears. So you'll be able to hear me talking through the mic, through the speakers and the music. And you also won't be so concerned about your neighbor hearing you scream. Because a lot of people will hold back on that scream because they're afraid that this person's not going to scream and I'm going to sound like an idiot. That didn't happen on New Year's. I was surprised every single person screamed. But I prompt you to hold your breath, like take a deep breath in and then hold it. And come time for me to say, it's time to scream, you're ready. Like in the script that I say in that period of time just kind of amps that up and gets you ready. And you, when you scream, you instantly are just crying. Like it's.
And that gymnasium idea is actually a really good idea. Renting some space and having a larger event where there's a bunch of people in there.
And actually Sarah from Four Directions told me that the Manistee Public Library has an adult services fund and they're going to pay her to do a sound bowl here at the Ramsdell. I'm like, I could fill the Ramsdell with people doing breath work.
The sound bowl stuff is pretty unique too.
Yeah. Jeez. But that's what we're trying to do here is have all modalities like that where it's centered around community healing where people come in and do classes like breath work and meditation, sound bowl healing, even Reiki if someone wants to come in and do like group Reiki sessions, or, you know, anything, any kind of healing modality where they can come in and help people in numbers. That's what we want to do. Plus our own one-on-ones that we're for people who aren't comfortable with doing it in groups.
And I even like thought about trying to figure out a method of doing this to where people who can't afford to come to a one-on-one session or come to a group session, I don't know if I'm going to set up some sort of like donation thing, and I would offer it for free, but people take advantage of free sometimes. Where if you know somebody who's really struggling with addiction, I would gladly help that person, because I know that they're not going to have the money to do it. But then you get people who kind of take advantage of that and like, well, I struggle with this, and then next thing you know, you're just completely working for free. So I'm trying to work on figuring out some method to where people can maybe sponsor or donate a session to somebody who they know, or like something like that, and maybe get one for free when they donate to somebody else. I don't know. I haven't figured all the details of that one out, but I really want to help people who really need it more than...
Yeah, and you can't do it if you give it away.
Right.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's the whole thing.
You got to be able to make some money off of it so that you can continue to do it, and grow your brand and grow your business and help more people that way. I mean, was something I struggle with a lot of like, you know, how I do this.
Right. And I'm trying to leave my job at the bar eventually one day, because I've had this conversation with everybody, like, well, you don't look like you enjoy your job. But it's not that I don't enjoy my coworkers or that I don't enjoy the job, but in the time frame I've been there, I've gone through a lot, and I've seen people who were everyday regulars who come in and drink themselves literally to death, or who, and I don't feel any better than the person selling drugs to somebody, because I'm like, oh yeah, I'm over here at the shop trying to help people with addiction. Yeah. Meanwhile, here, have another drink. Please tip me, because I need to pay my bills. So I'm trying to escape that position so that I can focus on actually helping people and not feeding an addiction. So I'm kind of at that spot where I'm contradicting myself.
And also, like, people, if they invest in something, they're going to do it. They're going to continue the work, because it's not, you don't just do one breathwork session and you're fully healed. You have to do work on your own. You got to, like, start healing that onion layer, you know, like each onion layer of, like, all your past traumas, and continue digging into yourself. Just going to someone else for sessions isn't going to heal you. You have to do, like with any kind of therapy, you have to do the work. You have to take a personal responsibility to do the work for yourself too, you know, in conjunction with that.
What does it cost?
For the group session, it's $33.
Okay. So if I wanted to come in and I wanted to do one of everything. I wanted to have the Reiki done at some point. I want to do some breath work with you, and I want to sit down and be taught how to meditate in your space. Those three things. I'm working on something in my mind right now.
Well, we don't have Reiki yet.
But
he's saying when we do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We were thinking about a membership even, like,
there you go.
Someone pays a monthly fee.
That's what I was thinking.
And then they can take the classes if they wanted to, or they can do drop in and pay as they come in. But
yeah, that was always part of our goal too, was to set up some sort of membership for that as well. But we're also looking for other people to do services at our place. So if anybody,
kind of energy healing or
any type of
healing modality.
Actually, there's a guy I need to respond to. I haven't responded to. I keep forgetting. But we're trying to get more services like that in there so that we can kind of build this. We have Kelsey who does tarot, and she's really good. As soon as when we were talking to her, as soon as she said that her focus is on shadow work.
What's that?
So shadow work is really like...
Sounds awesome.
Kind of like trauma healing, right? It's like digging into the depths of your soul and seeing what no longer fits this new you, right? Because we go through stages and versions. We all turn, as you start doing this self-healing through whatever you choose, sessions, books, self-help books, journaling, all meditating, anything like that, you start to realize that you have more to dig into, like, any abuse, any trauma from before, or anything, CPTSD, anything that's like causing an issue a lot of times from childhood, going all the way through that affects your patterns today. It's like figuring out, digging into those things and start to clear that heavy, dense energy outside of your, your energetic body. So you can allow, more light and like more goodness in, because it's kind of, if you think about it, you got to clear that stuff out. That's why even with my mediumship sessions, I tell people I'm only as good as the work I've done on myself, because I do consistent shadow work. I work every day for the past 8 years on myself. So when I step into that session, there's none of my traumas overlaying those messages. I'm not giving my own perspective through traumas or fears, right? I go in there, I drop all judgments, all biases, any kind of trauma that I've been through. I'm not looking through that lens of my own stuff. I'm completely stepping outside of myself, and self-work, shadow work has allowed me to do that, where I can completely step in and be all in without me saying, I feel you shouldn't do this, or, there's a dark energy around you, when really, if you go see a medium, or a psychic, and they're like, there's a negative energy attached to you, it's usually their own negative energy. They are the negative energy, right? They're seeing through their perspective. That's how they're seeing their world, and they're projecting that onto you, when in reality, and sometimes it's just something that just needs to be lifted, something that you just need to work through. And there's a huge healing aspect in awareness. Like a lot of things, I tell people, if you can dig in your subconscious and find those things that you've been through that have caused patterns, right? Because something can happen in childhood that causes a pattern through your whole life. Like, maybe an abandonment wound that goes through your whole life. If you can figure those things out, sometimes it just takes the awareness to know that that's there, and then you can catch it ahead of time, and it kind of just dissolves, right? It's there, what to heal, to start working on yourself to become more whole, and it just starts to dissolve just with an awareness that it could happen, and kind of getting ahead of the triggers. It's about that's why we're trying to do the whole thing where we want to help kids ahead of the game before they get into all this, and then also help people who have been through all of that and they're healing down here.
Yeah, I feel I have an 8-year-old, but and the son is going to be 21. My other daughter's turned 19. Do they still have like programs like there, even though we know that like it's not really?
I have a 7-year-old. I have a lot of kids. Mine all spread out like that too. But no, they don't. Not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
I don't see them talking to them about anything. Like I've had my kids do box breathing. My 7-year-old has really bad ADHD. It's very heavy in my family, but and so she's all over the place. And I actually got her to sit down and do that. And I'm like, how cool would it be if we could go to the elementary schools and teach kids, just have an assembly, or go into a classroom in a smaller group, and even if a teacher were to say, hey, here's a handful of kids that we feel would benefit from this. Obviously, we have to get parental consent and stuff like that, but just teaching kids how to do box breathing to calm themselves down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because sometimes their problem is they don't know how to regulate they don't know how to express what they're trying to say.
Yeah.
And
I thought about this the other day, and having something like that available to, a quote, I either heard it, read it, saw it on a video or something, where a guy was saying, don't yell at your kids first thing in the morning, expect them to have a good day. Don't holler at them at night, expect them to get a good night's sleep, kind of thing. And I think a lot of times, parents being in a very high stress environment all the time anyways, either working in a job that you don't like and it's stressful, or you don't have a job, or what. I mean, we can go down the list of all the things that are very stressful to be an adult with children, right? And you project that onto your kid, and then
Absolutely.
your kid goes to school. How can you expect them to have a good day? So then when they're there and maybe they're a little dissociated, or they're having an ADD issue, or they're lashing out and being naughty or whatever, having something there aside from the parapro, taking them in the hallway and doing math with them.
Right.
There might be something else that...
Maybe there's something for parents too, who are really stressed, where we teach them to stay conscious of what they're doing and stay present, because a lot of those anxieties, and when you're acting out at your kids, it's not about anything that's happening in that moment. It's about something that happened earlier, or something that you're afraid is going to happen tomorrow, right? Those stresses, those people aren't staying present. So if we can teach kids and their parents to stay in the present moment, stay conscious of what you're doing, because a lot of that, all that anxiety, and like when you just start flipping out on someone, a lot of times it has nothing to do
with that person
in the moment. It has nothing to do with that person. It's like something that you're worried about in the past that's sitting in your subconscious, something that you're worried about that's coming up, but you're not aware of it because you're not being present. You're not being present with yourself. You're not in your body. You're up here, and you're focusing on all those things, and you're just like in flip out mode, when if you just anchored yourself and grounded yourself and brought yourself back to here in this present moment, and been like, you know what, today my lights are on. I do it myself a lot, because my business has been ebb and flow a lot of ebb since, I came in this area, but not the area itself. I just feel like I need more population, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, I have to remind myself, even though I've been doing this work for almost a decade, I have to remind myself, like, today, everything's good, man. My lights are on. I have a roof. I have food. Everything's good. Because a lot of times we forget.
I'm gonna throw that out there too. I don't think it's the population as much as it is that I've lived a lot of places, and Manistee has like this grip on they don't want to change. Like, this town is like fighting change, and that goes from the people living here to the people running the city who want to keep this beautiful downtown Victorian, but don't want XYZ businesses to be here because it changes the downtown feel. Like, change is fought against in Manistee, and that's on every spectrum possible. And so I think there's just a lot of people here who aren't healed and don't want to heal. They don't want to change. They don't want to leave. They don't want to give up their vices. They don't want to have Moldavite handed to them. And
right.
What the hell is this?
Like, what is this rock?
Yeah. So I think that's a problem too. But as far as teaching kids how to cope and parents how to cope, I mean, I would be willing, I'm sure Lorrie would be willing to have something at the shop where we have parents bring their kids and we teach them how to interact and do that with their kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be the first person to admit that I've definitely taken out anger and frustration on all of my kids from young to old. And in the last few years, after learning, because I was very unhealed, I was dealing with a whole lot of crap, and I feel bad. I have a lot of guilt about what happened with my older 3 kids because I was a very young mom. I had my 3rd one when I was 20, and I didn't know any better. I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah, humans are constantly evolving.
Right?
Yeah, and
my oldest son I had when I was 24, going to be 25. I mean,
I apologize, my older kids.
Different person back then.
And now that I'm
today,
older, and I have 2 other ones. Now I get a chance to try to fix the rights and my kids have affirmations painted on their dressers. They have their shirts, and my daughter will. My 7-year-old cracked me up the other day because she's like, "Did you know that some people don't think they're beautiful?" Yeah. I said, "Did you tell them they're beautiful?" She's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, that's good." She's like, "Because it fills their cup." I said, "Yes, that's because it fills their cup."
Well, before your kids get on the bus, you're like, "I am beautiful." And they'll be like, "I am beautiful. I am smart. I am smart."
And then one of the teachers caught a picture of my 7-year-old sitting on top of the monkey bars. Now, this child, if you knew this child, you would understand how amazing this picture was, because she is a monkey. She is constantly moving and climbing and flipping and driving everybody insane. She was sitting on top of the monkey bars, full, legs crossed, arms out, meditating, wind blowing in her face, wearing a peace hoodie.
Yeah.
And the teacher caught it and sent it to me, and I'm like,
and kids are climbing all around her. Kids are climbing all around her, and she's sitting there. And if you knew Taraji, awesome. You would know that that's a pretty big feat for that to happen. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So it's like teaching kids at that age, that it's okay that stuff happens, and you can't be attached to things and people and outcomes, right? Not be so detached that you're not in reality.
Right.
But learn to bring yourself back to yourself and know that everything's okay, because today's okay. Right now, you're all right.
Yeah, it's hard to be like a psychologist to your kids, and I don't think you should be, but it's a weird thing. Like our youngest, you can tell, if Bets and I are kind of dealing with some stresses, and even if we're nonverbal about it, you can see that.
Oh, for sure. They feel it. Kids are so intuitive.
For sure.
Yeah, kids are so intuitive. They feel everything. Even things that you don't think they're going to realize, they're realizing them. They don't know how to express that. You know what I mean? They're just internalizing it, and that's where a lot of unhealthy patterns come from in adulthood. It's not like you can be a perfect parent, right? But at least do whatever damage control you can when you're sending them out on their day. And that spreads, When Ashlyn was young, my daughter, she's 20 now, she's turned 20, and she grew up, a lot of her life in spirituality, and she would, if she wanted something, she would go to school and have her friends talk about it as a group, and she'd literally try to manifest that way and make it happen through thoughts, It's very strategic. But I feel like if you taught a kid breath work, or box breathing, and that one kid goes to a group at a lunch table and someone's having a stressful day and they're like, "Hey, everyone should try this," it can spread.
I think it needs to be talked about more what
for
you two are
sure.
doing, and really, I think hopefully get some traction with this podcast and more people see it.
Yeah.
I think it's really remarkable what you're doing. Honestly.
So, also, by the way, I have a charm in my hair too. This little thing here is Sanskrit. It means breath. So, I actually tattooed this on myself. My first tattoo that I ever gave myself right here.
You gave it to yourself?
Yeah, I gave myself all these
All of them.
tattoos.
Shut the fucking front door. What?
So, before I knew that it meant breath. But this is before I was certified for breath work. I had no idea this was the path I was going to take. It means breath, and Sanskrit for breath, it means spirit. That's what it means in Sanskrit. So, you're literally learning how to breathe. You are breathing spirit. And
It's beautiful. You did all those yourself?
you should see the one on my leg. That was like the best.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, that's like some prison shit.
Right, right.
Like, how do you do that without, like, I've got tattoos.
I've learned how to
I've
learned how to disassociate from my body. So I just convinced myself it's not my skin.
Like, that one has had to
Oh, that one did hurt. That one hurt a lot. I did this one in the mirror. It's not that great,
Christ.
but I did it in the mirror.
Your finger, too. I mean, that had to be painful.
Oh, that's why they look like crap.
I think they look good.
And I did, my friend, the one that's kind of lost in the world right now, he did that one. I let him do that. But, yeah, these are rune stones, and I have on my legs, and my kids are also, my adult children are covered in tattoos from me, too. I don't know, my son handed me a tattoo gun one time and said, here, try this. And by the way, I discovered my artistic skills from taking mushrooms. I had no idea I could paint, and then one day, after taking mushrooms.
What do you see when you take mushrooms? We could talk for a while, but
I know.
we can. What I do.
Well, no, I mean, like it didn't necessarily come from a trip. Just something triggered in my brain, and boom, I could paint. I don't
That
know.
creative side in your brain probably just unlocked, opened a door.
And I spent 36 hours in my daughter's bedroom painting a mural.
36 hours. Is that how long you were on the trip for?
No, I was sober on this trip. I mean, I was sober painting. This is just like the result of taking psychedelics. Obviously, opened or wired some stuff in my brain to where I could. I mean, I could always like sketch a little bit of something, but I never really had an artistic skill of that kind of sort. But I did all the work at the Sun Shack. I did all the painting down there.
Really?
In her painting rooms.
Yeah, looks nice in there. I dropped off some posters. For
I painted the whole building.
I'm not much of a bed
Yeah, she did
tanner.
all that.
I'm more of an outside in my driveway with my shirt off kind of guy.
That's the only reason I have a tan right now is because of there. But yeah.
Yeah, I would say like it's like your body is whole, right? We have all this within us. It's about clearing the garbage throughout your life, throughout your human life that has blocked these things. Like someone can say, you could be a child at 3 years old drawing, and if your parents yelling at you for drawing or scribbling outside of lines or drawing on the wall, that can completely block your creative center for art. And then you just keep it blocked and think you don't have the skill set because you don't even remember that event your whole life. And then as you start to dig through yourself and through your subconscious, you start to release things, or sometimes it's psychedelics, and then it unlocks that little door. And I say it's like removing all the garbage throughout our whole life, and that's how you move forward. People think it's like, sometimes it's like obtaining something, right? You're not, like, even people who do psychic mediumship, any healing modality, it's about obtaining something, but it's not. It's about releasing all that dense energy within you to allow that stuff to kind of open up.
I can't believe you guys didn't really have anything to talk about when you did your 3 podcasts.
Right?
2, we only have 2.
Yeah.
I mean, for real.
I know we could go on. We have these conversations all the time. That's why we started the podcast, because we usually talk through Facebook Messenger, through like voice texts, and we would just have these long, in-depth conversations that sometimes span over friggin' days, because we're just like answering when we can when we're both busy, and then we'll just keep the conversation going.
So we decided, hey, we should do a podcast. And
Yeah,
then
like, we should.
I don't know, life got busy and we just didn't take the time to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to kind of want it. You got to kind of want to do it to do it.
And maybe
but
it's not the timing right. I feel
Yeah.
like the timing's got to be right for it.
And I feel like
Yeah.
the talking part wasn't the hard part. I didn't want to sit and edit the videos.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
If I could pay
So,
someone
like,
to do
pretty big
that
part of it,
We've
too.
talked for over an hour and a half. It'll take me another 3 hours just to get it.
Was it an hour and a half? It didn't even seem that long.
Oh, yeah. Almost 2 hours.
Wow.
And then
It's like 2 podcasts.
Yeah. It's part 1.
Right.
I need more content, so we'll cut it in half. I'm just kidding. We'll put it all out. But yeah, there's just the uploading and downloading of the thing is what takes the absolute most. But
This could have been so many different parts. It could have been like the addiction part. It could have been like the somatic part. It could have been the
Not
other.
expecting
I could go on and on
that we
about
had.
psychedelics.
Oh, you weren't?
Not expecting that conversation, which is fucking really refreshing. I'm finding more and more, like, sometimes I get nervous. I've had some people on the podcast that, like, I could just tell right away. And maybe some of it's my fault because, that person might be uncomfortable and they're very, like, rigid and they're just kind of answering the questions, yes and no. And like I said, I'm not a Q&A guy. I'm like, let's just kind of start someplace and go with the conversation. And then this is the most talking I typically do on a podcast.
Yeah.
I just like to let my guests just fire away. And
Yeah.
then if I interject, like I just did, I don't know if you watched the one I did with Doug.
I want to go back and watch that because I saw the
So
preview of
fucking
it,
good.
and I was
literally
like,
said, hey, how's it going? To another realm.
I saw
you
just
know?
a little clip of that on Instagram, and I have been telling myself I need to make time today to watch that because it looked so good
Yeah.
and
Who
so
Doug is.
spot on.
Who's Doug?
Douglas Meyer from Trophies. Big
Oh,
guy.
okay.
Big guy.
Yeah, I saw just a few clips and the conversations you were having. I need to go back and watch the whole thing because it was so spot on.
Yeah, that was good. But that's what I mean. It's like, so doing this is very much a learning curve for me because I thought we were just going to kind of just talk about maybe breath work because that's what came up when I was looking at.
I had full intentions on making you do some stuff, but we talked too long.
Yeah, we should, I guess, share the store
We should do
details
it
too
again.
because we didn't even say the store or anything.
I'm going to put it all in there. I'm going to do
Okay, cool.
an intro to the podcast.
Oh, sweet, okay.
So I'll talk about all of that in the front end so
Okay,
that
cool.
everybody gets that information up
Yeah,
front.
awesome.
Because, this is why I like doing this. Because I learned some shit today, which is pretty awesome. And you're right. I mean, there's a lot of things that we have to do with this problem, which is kind of weird, the fucking shit that you do. Mm-hmm. Like, I could feel this happening. What we talked about today, just like I told you before she got here, that you were here when I said Central Wellness is going to come in, and I need to get that contact from you for the Friendship Society because, there's all this shit happening all around us, and I feel like, the kind of blinders are on with everybody.
I will say too, I don't want to call Central Wellness out, so maybe don't put this part in here.
No, but this is part of the reason why I'm having a conversation
Yeah.
with them because I want to know what they do and why I don't see what they're doing.
So, was it a year and a half ago, maybe somewhere in there? My son had already been clean for a year, off all opiates. Like he had used cold medicine, a couple times, but he hadn't touched an opiate in over a year. And he was struggling with wanting to use anything, just he wanted to use. And a kid at work was on Suboxone, which, don't get me started on that shit. But this kid said, hey, you should try this. And my son was so dead set on listening to this kid, and I tried telling him that's an opiate. Like, you haven't used that. There's another one called Vivitrol, which is a monthly injection that'll prevent you from being able to get high. So even if you try, you can't. It's not an opiate, it's an opiate blocker. It just binds the receptors in your brain that allow opiates to connect to it. Now, the downfall, of course, is at the end of the 30 days, it starts to wear off, so the chance of overdose is a little bit higher.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that.
Also, if you maybe get into a terrible car accident, they can't give you any pain medicine because it's blocking those binders. You can't have surgery. But that happens with all addicts. If you talk to somebody who's in recovery from opiates, they're not going to let you give them, they'll go to surgery without pain medicine. They don't want the pain medicine because that's just going to relapse their addiction. But anyways, my son didn't listen to me. He went to Central Wellness and told them that he wanted to get Suboxone, and they gave it to him. And I was pissed, and I even tried calling ahead of time, and I realized my son's over 18. I know you can't tell me anything, but I'm his mother. I'm letting you know he hasn't used opiates in over a year. I don't know what he's telling you. Please don't give him Suboxone. Well, they did. And all that does is re-engage those opiate receptors and make you want to use opiates again. Luckily, it made him sick and he had a lot of issues and he was puking all the time, and he decided that wasn't worth it, so he stopped taking it after a month or so, which the withdrawals from Suboxone are 10 times harder to get off of than heroin itself. And
what a wild fucking world we live in.
well, we
Right.
went to the overdose.
It's not healing the addiction.
It was the opiate symposium thing that they had at the casino right around that time, and Central Wellness was there. And then they had the MATS director come up and talk, and I asked her, I said, if you had a client who had been clean from opiates for a year, would you give them Suboxone? And she's like, well, absolutely not. That, you know, blah, blah. I said, well, because Central Wellness did that. They gave them my son, you know, and I pretty much called them out in front of the whole place. I didn't care. I was pissed. And, you know, their jaws dropped, like, because maybe they didn't all know about it. But, like, whoever it was, it really made me mad. I was not happy. And there's another doctor, and I want to call him out, but I'm not going to, who can also prescribe Suboxone. He just works for Munson. And he was my doctor previously to me switching. And this is really honestly what made me switch from him to another doctor. Because I said, do you watch the people pee, like when you drug test them for the Suboxone? He said no. Because when he used to work for Walmart, they had him do that, and then a client turned him in, and then he got in trouble or something nonsense like that. So I'm like, so what happens if they're using somebody else's urine? When there are penises, like there are people that can buy it, and you can connect a bag of urine to it, and it looks like they're peeing into a cup. It's not them. Well, nobody does that. Are you freaking kidding me? And then, like, now they're prescribing gabapentin along with the Suboxone, and I know that most people may not be aware of this, but doctors should be, that gabapentin is what caused at least one person that I am well aware of overdose, because they can use gabapentin to block the blocking agent of Suboxone to then still be able to get high. And not only that, but it amplifies the high that they get from the opiates. So the reason they're giving them gabapentin is to help with the nerves, the nerve damage that's done. Gabapentin is a nerve blocker. But and people who that are very deep into addiction they're not stupid. They are not stupid people.
They know how to get high.
They know how to get high if they want to
Crackhead will
get high.
crack.
Yep.
Suboxone is designed to
They'll
not
figure out
be
a way.
able to use or abuse, but it is. And people are over prescribing Suboxone to go share with your friends to help them overcome addiction. No, all that's doing is they're selling it for the real shit. And then the people who are desperate to get high will then buy the Suboxone from you because they want to get high, whether that means risking their own life or what. Like,
my niece
it's
has been on
frustrating. There's
Suboxone about 10
whole
years.
problem.
Jesus Christ, it's like an SSRI.
She's been about
Can't get
she's
off
been
of
on it
it.
about 10 years, and she cannot get off of it because if she does, she's going to use. So she cannot get off of it. So it's 10 years later. Now she's a mom, thankfully. So she changed her life around. She's a mom. She's got a good job. They're living a normal life, but if she gets off the Suboxone, she's going to use.
Yeah,
the
like how
baby's,
normal is the life?
Right.
You know.
Yeah. But I mean, as far as like societal standards, right? Like
Yeah.
she was able to get approved for a car. They have their own house. They have a baby now. So she's like living mom life. But she has to be on this Suboxone because if she doesn't, her addiction is still there.
I would personally rather somebody be taking a prescription of Vicodin than Suboxone.
Yeah.
That's
it's
my
not
opinion.
healing the addiction.
Suboxone is not fixing the problem. It's making it worse, in my opinion, and it does serve a time and a place. It has a purpose. It had a purpose. I think methadone clinics are a joke. It shouldn't exist. I don't believe that does anything for anybody. It's a free way of getting high. It's got to be monitored. You got to go there, get it, cool, but then you can leave and get high again. It doesn't do nothing. That's just giving somebody a free out. And the Vivitrol injection is the only thing that's not an opiate. And I asked why they didn't give that to my son instead of Suboxone, and they said that our area here is not certified to prescribe that. And then another lady got up and she said this is why. Why? Because with Vivitrol you have to take a 4-hour training to explain the drug before you're able to prescribe it. With Suboxone, Nothing. You got to sign a piece of paper. So doctors don't want to go through the hassle of taking a 4-hour training. Therefore,
It's alarming.
they
Yeah.
would rather
Very much.
prescribe Suboxone. And they're over-prescribing it because they're numbers. There's more funding for these programs if you're prescribing all the Suboxone. Suboxone's a joke, period. I don't like it. I feel like it's causing more problems than anything. My 2 cents.
I should have you come back on and we can have
Seriously.
a longer conversation
Yeah.
about this for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Little rough ending, but I think it's a good spot to stop. And like I said, I'll put a little piece on the front of this that kind of explains who you guys are,
Okay, cool.
about the business, and I'll put all the links to everything in the show notes. It'll be
Yeah, thanks for having us.
yeah. Thanks for coming on. Eye opening. Let's
Yeah.
get you guys to sign the board.